Hey everyone, today we have a very interesting video. A first look into Gates of Hell Liberation. This is an expansion pack to the Gates of Hell ostfront game, which adds the US and the Western Front. Instead of just doing a first look, we thought it would be interesting to do some multiplayer games against the developers and interview them as we played. I am joined by Wolfpack, who is co-hosting this episode. You will be able to see how nice the expansion pack looks and also hear from the developers on their thinking as they initially tackled this project and what they're thinking about as they expand on it with this new DLC. Along with that, we go into other ambitious plans that they have. The expansion pack comes out on the 29th, and you can find the Steam link in the pinned comment below. If this is your first time here, this channel focuses on multiplayer sim gameplay, so if you're into that, please subscribe.
So the game was originally conceived as an RTS where you could just do more than a normal RTS, where you could almost think of it like an encyclopedia of World War II. One where the usual compromises of an RTS game were minimized. And by those compromises, I mean having icons on top of everybody and having really arcadey distances. And it was supposed to feel more like a milsim inside.
Ready, sir.
Cut out again.
I mean, I do get that vibe. It definitely feels much more, I don't want to use the word hardcore, but it definitely feels more hardcore than other RTSs.
Awaiting orders.
Well, that's what attracts me to it, is frankly the fact that it is more of a sim than just like a click fest, I guess. Like, it's relatively slow paced compared to, you know, some other FPS or RTSs you see.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that.
Yeah, me too. And if I speak for myself, I would say what attracts me in this version of the game and what made me say yes to this project is the fact that it has a simulator-like side. It's not a simulator, and it will never be. But I like it a bit more realistic as well. I think if you see the trouble that they've gone through to get the damage system right, for instance, that was a big part.
Always ready.
We're all actually kind of
Any orders, sir? Aye, sir.
fans of the genre, and we all have a passion for history.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because Wolfpack, what you said is interesting because it is like it's not a click fest, but what is interesting too is that like unlike other RTSs, you have like the first person view.
Yeah.
And if you really want to go super sweaty, like that is an option.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, the first person view is quite fun, and I don't know, especially in the tanks with the optics and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like the amount of work that went into doing that. Like, it'd be fun just to run around in tanks for an entire, like one tank for an entire match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh wait, there's cows now.
Yeah.
Oh, the game's lagging.
Yeah. French cows, though. They don't speak English. Yeah, has to be remembered. You can't ask them for directions. Yeah, so I guess what makes Gates of Hell slightly different from other games is that bit of realism, the first and third person views, and I think the rest of the differences, the most important ones, are under the bonnet. How does the actual damage model work? We devoted an entire dev blog to it. Development update 97. It's still on our Steam community,
Awaiting orders, sir.
which tells you everything. Not just about armor plating and angles, but also about ballistics and munitions.
From Uncle Sam.
And there's very few RTS games that try to go for a cinematic, sort of realistic look where the colors are like muted down and you have a bit of an immersion through the gritty and cold colors of war. Most RTS games like to highlight the shapes of objects and stuff to make it easier to
Yes,
read.
sir.
And
Yeah.
we've gone for an art style that has been pretty unique, I think.
My smoke
Yeah,
grenade
which
just my smoke grenade just started to fire.
That's a phosphorus grenade.
Aye, sir. Fire in the hole.
Yeah, and the
Oh
unique
my
selling
goodness.
point. Unique selling point of Gates of Hell, I suppose, is the historical bit, and it has a big influence on gameplay as well. Even though nobody, or I wouldn't say nobody, even though
Awaiting
not
orders, sir.
everybody would immediately notice, but the landscapes are modeled after real landscapes. So, well, if you have just done a mission and finished it and think, wow, that was really, really laborious, and if you then reboot it and try to change tactics or take that point from a different angle, it might just work because the landscape can actually be used. It's a real landscape, which means your real life tactics might just work in this game.
Yeah,
And,
which
and that's
I definitely like.
yeah.
I mean, even the small scale stuff is quite fun. Like I've been recently, last night actually, I was playing the Pavlov's house mission where you just like have a handful of guys
Sir.
Oh yeah.
I'm ready.
and going around and scrounging around for, spare ammunition and taking guns off of, dead enemies and stuff is a very interesting way to play that I really hadn't experienced in the game until playing that mission. But it's really fun. Just a variety of
Ready, sir.
gameplay styles that are available in
Go,
this.
sir. I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess every mission can be played in more than one way.
Always ready.
Right.
And I think that's what lends it a bit more replay value than you get when you make landscapes artificially balanced or set up with a specific purpose. Whereas in real life, obviously, landscapes are not set up so you can have a good line of sight. Landscapes are landscapes.
Right.
And
Any orders, sir?
for me, that really adds something. Like the first single-player mission on ostfront for the Germans is one in which you almost immediately end up in the enemy's line of fire, and then you really have to study the way that map looks and works. Where's the little hills? Where's the little dikes? How much higher up is the road from the landscape? You really have to take these things into account. To me, that really adds a dimension, and I think that's what could have phrased the sentence 4 that came with the original description of Ostfront module. It's time to relive the hell that soldiers endured.
Sir.
It's more than playing a game, in our view.
What's interesting is that I feel like most RTSs don't really. Let me say this another way. I feel like a lot of RTSs feel really flat, and this is like one RTS, or maybe the one RTS where I really have to be mindful of like how the ground is actually shaped, like the little like having one little bump on on a mound or something can make the ATG like not have enough visibility to shoot. You know what I mean? And like that could really be a big factor. So it is interesting because you get into these weird fights where it's like literally just like a little hill like determines everything.
Yeah. You get a bit more appreciation for the fact for all of those cliches that you know about holding high ground and everything. Because it's true. It does play a part. It does play a part. And for that to be realistic, obviously, all you need to do is copy real landscapes. Well, all you need to do, there's a bit more required for that, But
Awaiting orders, sir.
And like, where do you make any compromises with that? Like, I'm guessing I can see even in this map you've added quite a bit of like micro terrain, I guess is what it's called, like in terms of boxes and crates and such.
Yeah, Like one of the most key aspects of Gates of Hell, one thing that makes it really unique is that there are many ways to play the game. For example, you've already said a couple things in this regard, but I, for example, whilst testing the German single-player campaign of Liberation, there's missions of the Fallschirmjäger, the German paratroopers, and I like to play those missions by selecting a guy wielding an FG-42, which is a weapon I love, and just third-person the hell out of him until he dies, and then doing it all over again. And the game has matured to a point where we've managed to make it balanced so that you can play the game in any of these ways, like top-down, global strategy, or direct control, or third person, and they all work well enough, so there's not a clearly overpowered way to play the game. And it is because we've reached this point of maturity that we know how to make maps with all these micro terrain details or cover, so that any kind of gameplay is admissible and will yield good results. And it's not easy, but we've had time to look into it and see what the feedback is for the different methods of play. And you will see that this map has a lot of cover everywhere, but also one of the things that we did with Liberation was make everything destructible, even the largest buildings, except the Cologne Cathedral, which is just slightly too massive. So one new methodology that's leans quite well to the US is the blow the hell out of everything doctrine, and you can definitely do that. It works quite well on these maps. The US have a lot of radio operators with off-map support artillery, and generally big guns works quite well.
What when you guys were making this game originally, like what sort of games were you guys taking inspiration from?
The game engine is quite a fantastic platform for doing what we wanted to do. So, like, allow you to loot inventories or control one vehicle to the utmost degree of detail or control 10 of them at the same time. So naturally, the games that were developed on this game engine were a real source of inspiration. The Men of War games and the games that predated the original Men of War, so Faces of War and Soldiers, Heroes of World War II. All these games have been invaluable, and they've also made a lot of people like the franchise, which was good for us because it was like an untapped market, very easy to access. Other games that we've drawn inspiration from, we actually have quite a select or varied developer range. We have some of us that like flight sims of all things, actually. And then there's people that like mill sims, and then there's people that like turn-based strategy games. And we've all sort of added a bit of inspiration from our different, I guess you could say, hobby games that we like, and created an amalgamation of a really interesting mix. So when we do game design, there's always someone that likes to do a regimental simulator, and then there's one that likes to simplify and make it really easy to understand, and then there's one that likes to compromise. And our team kind of works like that, a bit like a tug of war until we reach a recipe that works everywhere.
Yeah.
It is interesting because this unit selection that's in this one feels like it's much more focused, because at least with Ostfront, like the original one, it was the entire Eastern Front, and then with Scorched Earth you stretched it out more. So you guys were covering a really wide range. With this one, like the unit definitely feels like it's much more focused, and like there's a lot more variety with like the similar type units. Cause I'm looking at the infantry, and like there's a lot of different ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So for Liberation, we went for an interesting approach where we, instead of doing, for the single player aspect, instead of focusing on just doing random battles here and there that are not interconnected, we've gone for like a unit-based storyline. So we're focusing 2 German units and 2 US units throughout the course of the war, in an attempt to create a sort of storyline effect, and I think that's more relatable to players. something that feels more like there's continuity. And depending on the reception of this new recipe, we may go for one direction or another. But what we were trying to do is give a bit more of a story feel to the single player, since we already have dynamic campaign and PvE that allows you to play more like loose single missions.
Yeah.
And also, one important consideration to be done is that in the Western Front, there were a lot of armies fighting together. The British, the Free French, the all sorts of resistance fighters from multiple nations. The Commonwealth themselves have a lot of, like Canadians and Scottish and etc. So we don't want to depict the Allies all in the one go because it would be impossible. So we kind of chose units that fought in particular situations where these would only fight Americans and the British were not involved and other nations were not involved, so that in the future we can do those nations and create a much more broad and like increase the coverage of the Western Front as a whole. So it could seem like this DLC is very focused, but there is a wider scope to this whole plan, if that makes sense.
What had you go with the Americans first, as opposed to the British?
It's more of a marketing decision.
Yeah. I was curious if that was the primary motive, which makes sense, frankly.
Well, you see, there's a number of things that can be said about that. Obviously, you know, we don't mind selling as many games as we can. However, what we also want is a community, a tight community that likes playing the game together.
Right.
We thought the biggest step to make in the community would probably be if we did the US first. And you know, everything's open from here. Everything, literally everything. But what we do hope is that this will be a big step into getting a much higher median number player number.
What's the distribution? Do you guys look at the distribution between multiplayer and single player players?
Are you interested in knowing how many users play what?
Yeah, because I'm gonna call this game more of a sim, right? And then the other sim games like DCS and IL2,
I'm ready. Great
Battles at least, like only about 10 to 15% of the players actually play multiplayer. So I'm kind of curious, like, if you know what the distribution is in this game.
We don't have a very up-to-date number right now, but for this game and other Men of War games predating this one, the multiplayer aspect has always been around 15 to 20% of the player base only, but nonetheless, it's a very important part of the player base because it is the player base that keeps the game alive, and our incredible modders as well that create content for everyone to enjoy. So it's definitely worth nurturing, even if it's a proportionally smaller subset of players.
15-20%. I don't know what number I was expecting. That oh my god, what happened to our church? This half track just rolled in.
Oh boy, I didn't even realize what was going on over here.
Wait, what is this half track? This dude has. Is this a flame? Oh, it's 2 flamethrowers?
Yes, sir.
This is absolute schizo. Look at this thing.
Oh my gosh.
Alright, Wolfpack, I'll let you handle that.
I will say that is one of the most, I don't know, calling it fun, but the Scorched Earth DLC, adding the sheer amount of just flame tanks and flame vehicles. They are a lot more fun to use than I originally thought they would be.
I love the Carl.
Well, it is.
No, that one's fun too.
It is called Scorched Earth, isn't it? I mean.
Yeah, no, I mean, it checks out. Oh my gosh.
Okay, 15-20% play multiplayer. Is that a big number or a small number? I'm trying to think in my head.
Burn.
I would say.
I guess that's kind of what I expected, for the most part. Around 15 to 20%.
It's because at the end of the day, even if 80% of people played multiplayer, a game needs single player and multiplayer to have sort of a prosperous life expectancy and be a game to be remembered. Nowadays, you can't just stick to one like way of playing the game, such as single player, and call it a day. There, you would have to have a really cool single player story to be able to get away with that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And with-
Oh, go ahead.
Aye, sir.
No, it's just that for an RTS, especially considering that the game engine has already matured for almost 20 years, when we released the game, we knew that we wanted to take advantage of everything that it could offer, including third person, and all those things.
Well, I guess one thing that really adds to the single player replayability is the dynamic campaign. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't think any of the other games that use this engine had anything like that.
Call to Arms had the dynamic campaign. They were the ones that introduced it,
Oh, okay,
along with a Cold War version of Men of War, which was released, I believe, in 2019 or 2020.
Okay.
But we were the first to, or we have taken the concept and developed it further. So the kind of dynamic campaign that you get in Call to Arms Gates of Hell is not like the ones of the other games, and we still haven't really finished. There's a lot we want to do there, and when we can spare the resources.
Yeah, I was curious if y'all were thinking of expanding that game mode even more, because I think it has an insane amount of potential.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, for how fun it is now, like.
I agree.
Fuck.
Yeah, I agree.
Are you aware you stopped streaming?
I stopped streaming because it was lagging the game a little bit. Discord
okay.
takes up quite a bit of CPU.
I'm in a tank duel with a half track.
Maybe Mark could live stream because he's got a super good PC recently acquired.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, finally.
Oh my god, this half track. There's a pack
Oh,
40.
this half track in the center of town's about to get annihilated.
I cannot believe I didn't
You
kill
were
that
not
half track.
wrong.
Oh my gosh, but that was a little close to me.
Who did that?
Yeah.
Oh, I had HE loaded.
Okay, seeing the buildings explode is pretty awesome.
The map just became a little bit flatter now.
So I think that
Yeah, no, that's cool.
I think it was Mark, you mentioned the mod scene. So the mods in this game are actually kind of interesting. I actually was this might actually be a spicy question. But so someone made a well, actually, do you guys play any of the mods? Like
Some of us will use mods, yeah.
From time to time, yeah. Some of the mods like Maze, Conquest Enhanced, Valor, those things.
Yeah, I just was curious because I was surprised how in depth the mods were, or like how much they covered. Because I mean, some of them were adding like a lot. Like the enhanced conquest one. Oh, what happened to my tank? Oh, there he is.
It's getting hetzed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I would imagine that as a developer, it must be an interesting feeling seeing what mods come out, because it's like you just make the game and then players just start like making random stuff.
Yeah, that's for a number of reasons. That's really fascinating to watch. For one, you get to know who the talented people in your community are, and the active ones, because from nothing comes nothing. So even though it's probably a bit less work to make a mod than to make a full-blown game, it still requires a lot of input, and we just watch how people go about it, and we appreciate most of it, to be honest.
Well, hasn't there you have hired modders in the past, right? Or am I
Well-
misremembering the sound design?
Well, that's a good one. That's true. Yeah. So we're definitely not against modding. No. But that wasn't the question even. I don't think. We do keep an eye on everybody that's modding, and some of the stuff just stands out quite clearly. And I think if you take Mace mod, there's sort of a theoretical threat to liberation that you could state as, you know, why would anyone still buy liberation if they can have the Mace mod for free? Well, I think that's where the technical differences begin to count, because as I told earlier, we described in development update 97, we described a lot of things to do with the modeling of internal components, for instance, damage model, ballistics, etc., etc., and then to see that put into action in the official game for the USA, I think does add something. Now I don't remember the question.
The question was, I just kind of getting more your feeling about mods, because I feel like in some communities, or not some communities, some games there's like a little bit of the mod developers. I don't want to say they antagonize, but there's kind of like a weird relationship between the games and the mod scenes. But I feel like you guys have been pretty good about like really embracing it and allowing it. Not even allowing it, but actually like kind of like even making it part of the game. You know what I mean? Like I know some people who refuse to play the game without mods. Like they love the mods so much. Like for me, like the Enhanced Conquest is such a good experience, and I like playing the defense only maps. So there was that mod that made it defense only, and like I actually had a lot of fun doing that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. We embrace modding. One of your earlier questions was how many of it gets incorporated, or how many people who were modders were incorporated. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah, that was Wolfpack's question.
Yeah. Well, that's a bit of a point. There's people that think that this game was started upon as a project by a couple of modders, but that's not the truth. I think Gates of Hell as a project started out with a couple of developers who are quite kind of versed in not just developing this, but developing other things as well. Developers put together to see what they could do with this engine that hadn't been done yet, and it's not like a couple of modders decided we'll call our mod a game now. It's the other way around. We made a game by people who also know how to mod, and maybe that's where it comes from, that we know exactly how people like to modify things, introduce them, present them, fill gaps. Basically, that's what happens a lot as well. And to keep people happy playing as Americans, the Mace mod and other mods did a wonderful job to fill the gap until now. And we're working with the modders to have everything out in the open and on the table. So.
Well, not until now. They can continue to do it. At the end of the day, if you choose to buy the DLC as opposed to playing with a mod that adds the same thing, it's probably because it doesn't exactly add the same thing. So we value our modders a lot. We know what they do. We have tools at our disposal to make the game better. There's so much that you can do with modding, and when you're actually making the game, you can go a step further. and that's why we have meaningful DLCs that add stuff that not necessarily only modders can do. So we are confident. By the way, what was that airstrike?
That was a bomb.
That was a bomb,
was a
my
bomb.
lord.
I was not ready for that.
No, neither was I.
I was going for the
I
double
didn't
kill.
move at the last minute, but I wasn't
Gonna bring an AA
wasn't
truck.
ready. You got rid of my cover here.
Well, I
Yeah.
was trying to go for the Tiger and the Hetzer at the same time, and or is that a Hetzer or is that a Panther 38T? Oh no, yeah.
It's a Hetzer.
The drilling is also anti-aircraft, yes, Tyler?
Yeah.
Okay.
That Tiger is a chonky boy.
Yeah.
So I guess the P-47 is not, doesn't look like it's in this version yet, because the plane that came in was a Yak.
It was just finished texturing and it's in the exporting
Yeah.
process at the moment.
Enigma, the P-47, you will absolutely love it. It looks brilliant.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, the detail that goes into modeling even the aircraft in this is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, you guys spent an insane amount of time, because I remember, I think I was playing with Wolfpack, maybe it was Giggles, but like, there was a map with the 109 on the ground, and I like zoomed in on the model, and I looked at the cockpit, and like the actual cockpit was like the right one for the right version, and I was like,
Yeah.
I can't believe they spent the time making this.
Yeah, well,
That's
when you're
the-
making a model, better do the right one, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you can leave that to Kula.
Yeah, you'd expect planes to be okay when flight simmers make them.
Yeah. Yeah, and also if I remember correctly, you made a Günter Rahl texture for the 109 G6.
I did, yes.
Yeah. So that's Rahl's individual aircraft, because we know there's people who know these things or who know how to find out what the plane should have looked like exactly. So, and it's not so hard to find the JG52 crest, or it's not so hard to find out someone's rank at a certain date. So you can give them the right number of chevrons or whatever in the aircraft, and that's what we did.
This half track
Sometimes,
is oh, sorry.
sometimes an extra mile is not that far to go.
The Sherman versus King Tiger.
It did
matchup
not go
was
well.
expected.
You guys are gonna have to step it up.
It ended predictably. Will they win for the Tiger?
So Tyler and I are playing with the German doctrine that comes with Liberation. It's it adds certain units that we developed specifically for this DLC, like the different half-track versions that we've seen, or Masshorn, Hummel, Panzerwerfer. Some pretty cool stuff. We also added a new Soviet doctrine that uses Lend-Lease equipment, but we actually gave that one for free.
Oh, okay,
Nice.
cool.
Yeah, that's part of the Content Update 5, which is the open beta thing that we are running at the moment. And there's no church anymore.
Yeah, I was tired of having my line of sight blocked, so.
This half track is the bane of my existence.
I cannot believe some of these German fellas survived that artillery bombardment.
Wait,
That
there are
leveled that church.
any that... all of mine have been killed except
Oh,
the
okay,
guy
I
that
guess
was
maybe they
charging
moved
the
in.
Prager.
I was just...
Dude, we're gonna lose. I could not. That half track stopped my entire advance. He knocked out like
I'm out of
three
ammo
my
with
tanks.
it. It's my hero of this game.
Yeah. Oh my god. that
Wow.
that half track literally stopped. Like it knocked out 3 of my tanks.
Yeah, it's the best unit of the game. Look at that.
Okay, let me pick a different map.
That was fun.
I think it's time for Mark to play. Should me or Tyler step out, Mark?
Oh no, you guys keep going. This is fun.
Yeah.
What's a map? What do we do? 2v2. We
What-
can make a 3v3 if you want.
Yeah, we could do that.
What's a good map? I mean, they're all good maps. But which one do we
I'm
want?
gonna have to leave in a couple of minutes, so there shouldn't be a slot for me.
How about Mark? What's a map you really like from the 3v3 set? Since you have made quite a few of them.
Oh, Hurtgenwald.
We should
Alright.
do the domination.
There you go.
Wait, do we have one more or no?
I think you have to enable spectators again.
E-
Yeah, now Mark can go to the spectator slot if he wants.
Mark probably wants to play.
I think you guys can handle 3 of us.
We'll try.
We'll have to change the nation to the Americans.
Yes. Keep it historically realistic for now.
So now that you're working it in practice, how do you like the preview tool for the doctrine?
It's nice.
Oh, it's fantastic. It clears up a lot when choosing a doctrine.
It was
You can-
necessary.
So in this case, the host or the either Kula or Tai could determine if there's a bot in that third slot, which doctrine they want it to use. You can set that in the lobby now.
Wait, should we do mid-war? Let's do mid-war. See what mid-war's like. Holy. 3 Sherman to call in on the D. Interesting. All right, you guys ready?
Sure.
Yeah.
So how do you guys go about like thinking about the balance for multiplayer? Because it's interesting because I feel like most RTS developers don't really care too much about multiplayer balance, but it seems like you guys spend a lot of time with it.
We do.
Oh my
yeah.
god.
Well, we have sort of, I wouldn't say a dedicated function for it, but we do have players from, let's say, the multiplayer scene, the top of the multiplayer scene, who assist us with it. And you spend a lot of time tinkering over the settings that we have. And if you've seen the changelog that comes with the content update 5, you can see a lot of little tweaks with it. And it's obviously it's important because yes, we know the game works. Yes, we know, people will live with a certain status. That's always going to be fine. But if you put a real effort in to keep it balanced, even though you introduce all kinds of new things, you're going to have to put in an effort. And we hope it keeps everybody happy.
Mark, you want to talk about the multiplayer testers and our little ecosystem that we have going? Since you lead that whole thing.
Suppose so. So we have a pretty good team of multiplayer testers that are sort of hand-plucked from the community. Every quarter or so, we'll do a run of recruitment for the community, so the community can directly just apply to be game testers and test any future content updates or the DLCs or any of that. And from various different experience levels, I mean, we pretty much are happy with anyone that's like new or old. It's always get better to have people that are good veterans and then other people that are also relatively new to the game. Because it gives fresh perspective on the way the meta changes. Every time we make updates, it tends to change a little bit. Everything is always slightly adjusted, like the content update 5 we just put out for the beta. And the multiplayer testers we have, they all will play regularly, pretty much every single day. There will be game sessions put up for them, and they will play on a regular basis and give us feedback on even the smallest changes that would make the biggest differences. And they get to have direct communication with all the development team and all the people responsible for multiplayer development, so they get to directly change anything in the game that can modify the balance of any unit or doctrine or anything. So they have a lot of leeway, and the community definitely gets a big jump in say of how these things go down. It's definitely, we try and implement a lot of the changes that the testers ask for within reason that we can provide. Yeah.
It's almost a full-time job to manage the multiplayer competitive testers, since sometimes they are very demanding. But we did hire one of the top players, and it's been invaluable because he's sort of ahead of the curve, knowing how things will play out and being able to get game out with a lot more polished in the balancing regard. So that's great.
So what are some like controversial things that have come up in well, not controversial, but like what have been like some big debates about multiplayer scene? Like you guys had to think about it, and like, do we actually want to do this or not, or like it kind of just kind of looking for an example so people can understand like what sort of things you guys weigh.
One of the things where there's been historically a lot of tug in one way or another actually is the total amount of troops that you can field, the sort of CP green number that you see on the bottom right, because you know the maps are big enough to be able to house a lot of units, but at the same time more units require more attention to control at any given time, and also it reduces the overall performance by having more things going on at any point in time. Also, if you add more troops and you have to spend less time managing each one because you have so many to do, it's not conducive to playing third person or direct control and things like this. And even though the pace is slower than most other RTS games out there, if you want to reach the full potential playing this game, you need to invest a lot of time looking into the little nuts and crannies of each unit and trying to max out its possibility. But throughout the testing period, testers have always, like, they're very skilled players. They want to have more units and more possibilities to unlock the potential of the battlefield for strategies. And we've, over time, had a lot of fighting with the testers about the general vision of multiplayer. And we're more leaning towards having a smaller amount of units in the battlefield and being able to give each one its proper attention, whereas some testers have really been pushing into having a lot more units available and just being able to field hordes of armies. And there's mods that do that, and in fact if you select custom settings you can increase the size of the unit pool. But that's been one thing that we've always been that's been controversial internally, as an example.
What about artillery? Because the one thing that I've always wondered about this game is, I mean, I do like the artillery, but it is really powerful, and I've always wondered about the scale of the artillery relative to like the amount of units and such. Like, is that like a big debate?
Artillery has always been present, and there's times that it has been really strong, and sometimes we've over-nerfed it. We don't really have a strong attitude against or for artillery. We want a balanced game that allows artillery to have its place, but not be the solution to everything. And we tend to change the parameters of the game according to the feedback of testers to achieve this. Recently, Content Update 5, there was quite a big nerf on rocket artillery in general because it was very powerful. It was overused.
Yes, I think Enigma, you stipulated in a couple of posts or a couple of remarks that I remember that you thought that artillery plays a very big part in these settings. So, I think we agreed, if I listened to Kule well enough just now.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So when you go about nerfing artillery, do you just nerf how much it costs generally? Is that the easiest way to go about?
No, there's different ways. You can influence the cost, but you can also influence its ability in several ways. Yeah.
I
like
think
the
that some of the
accuracy.
things we experimented with artillery were changing the accuracy and the cost and the CP. So if you buy an artillery, a lot of your army is taken up by it. We also changed the resupply cost and amount of shells in the artillery. So now if you want to be firing for a significant amount of time, you need an ammo truck or crate, and it's going to drain it quite quickly. And for radio or signalers, this last update we increased the reload time of the flares. And I think we've also experimented with overall mobility and some other details in the past about artillery. But there are many ways to go around it.
Did you get evicted from your armored car?
Yes.
Okay.
Seems so.
Well, I'm going to evict myself from this game now. I have visitors to tend to, I'm afraid. So,
See you, Flick.
thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks, Enigma and Wolfpack, for having us, and I'm looking forward to the video.
Oh yeah, it'll be fun. Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem at all. Anytime. All right. I would say have some more fun, and I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
See you.
So when you guys were thinking about the next, I guess, how far in advance do you guys think about your next expansion? Because you guys did Ostfront, and then Tali Volstead came out, and then there was the other one, Scorched Earth. So like, you know, like, is it kind of like a what's 1 year development time, and it's a couple months up front to think about what you guys are going to do next? Like what does that kind of timeline look like usually?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Some DLCs are a lot shorter than others, but something that adds a whole nation, it's definitely a year plus some months to plan. I would say, yeah, sounds about right.
So we kind of covered this at the beginning. So the U.S. Or the Western Front was picked because of its popularity, but I am curious of like, I guess of like the broad ambition, because there's a lot more that can be covered, and I'm curious, like, are you guys like kind of hoping that you guys can eventually cover like all the theaters or a certain number of theaters, or where's your guys' head at?
We definitely want to continue doing nations and theaters and minor expansions like Scorched Earth for as long as we can. So as long as the game allows us to put food on the table, and as long as there's interest and the game has a community. In the end, what we're doing is making the game grow and have more content to it, and be just larger and more cohesive. And I don't think we ever set ourselves any limits on if we wanted to do a certain theater or leave a certain theater out. Everybody has their preferences, obviously. I think the one thing that we probably agree on, and I may be speaking out of turn here, but I think that we can probably all agree we're going to continue doing World War II based nations and expansions. I don't think we will diverge into other conflicts until this one has probably been told properly to, you know, as much as we can. I think that's probably the way we'll go around it.
Are there any so I guess there's no theaters of World War II that you're specifically leaving out then? Like the Pacific is something you'd be interested in doing? Or some of you would be?
I know that a large part of my team is really interested in the Pacific. And then there are some people that are more adamant to the Pacific because, how are you going to make Japanese tanks good? Oh, wait.
Right,
Not
yeah.
possible to. But
It's definitely more asymmetric.
Yeah, but only really time will tell. And I think we're working on nations and parts of the war at the best order possible. The first one we did was Finland, and the reason for that was that we knew we wanted to do nations, but we still were transitioning from the release of the game into a fully fledged commercial project, whereas before we had internally been handling our resources. So we didn't want to put in our mouth more than we could chew in our first expansion. So we went for Finland because it's a nation that has a lot less content. It already had the Soviets that you would be facing. It has a really interesting history, and very few RTSs had actually done the Winter War before, at least in a meaningful way, and the continuation in Lapland War. So that was the first logical step for us. And once we knew that we could do Finland, we knew that we could take a larger challenge into our hands. And that's when we started working on the US faction.
So
However,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, we did want to do Scorched Earth in between because we knew that it would take a lot of time to get the team ready to do Liberation. We were still expanding at that point and getting the right training to the right people to be able to do their tasks properly. And as a result, we added Scorched Earth as a filler in between.
I gotcha. So pre-production on Liberation started pretty much after the Finland DLC? That's how far out you guys decided what was going to happen next? Interesting. Cool.
Okay.
We actually knew that we were going to do the US when we released the game. Because we had already agreed so with the publishers, but the publishers understood the situation and were also in favor of doing a smaller nation first to sort of test the waters. And it's also, we had to add a lot of back-end features to the sort of game engine to make it work. This whole business of selling nations, for example. With the doctrine system, and how to prevent somebody that owns the nation from just giving you all the files and it just working on your local computer. It was not a system that had been thought through very well in the beginning. The game engine hadn't been ready for it. So we tested the waters with Finland because it was a really comfortable working environment in many regards. But we knew from the start that the US was our big goal, and that's why we've been working super hard to create this package as a really cohesive and large item. This package itself, Liberation, exceeds in actual content Ostfront when it originally released. Now Ostfront is massive because it's had 5 content updates, 2 community updates, or 3, and a lot of other smaller updates in between. But Liberation was conceived from the very beginning, which is different from the future. Towards the future, we're going to be deciding what battlefields and DLCs to do more on a situational basis. So, for example, if our development protracts for very long, we may do one that takes us less time. And after we do a smaller DLC, we can once again ramp up to something bigger. But answering your question, we knew about the USA from the very beginning.
So, what are some technical limitations, or I guess what are some technical limitations that make other theaters that much harder? Because Wolfpack brought up a good point. Everyone, Pacific's the other really big one, right? And then I would imagine the way that I think about this is that. For me, I think Italy could actually be a really interesting one because you guys do such a good job with your maps that actually have a lot of different height levels that could be really neat. But on the flip side too, something like Africa could be really neat, but I would imagine that Africa, the map's going to be really big and there's not going to be that much cover, but you would have to play more with the elevation with sand dunes and stuff to make it interesting, I guess. But I don't know, like what are some engine or technical limitations that come into play when selecting a theater?
Well, for example, one of the considerations that we were having when we started doing the pre-production for the USA was, were we gonna uh, were we gonna do a storyline campaign of the 101st Airborne, which is something that we really want to do at some point. And then we looked at how much we actually needed to work on to have paratroopers work properly, for example. And then we decided that on top of everything else that we wanted to do, it would probably be better to leave the airborne experience to a later point and work on some other divisions for the storyline campaign. So it's always about some particular gameplay feature that could be just convoluted or take a long time to implement. I don't think there's really technical limitations about the different theaters from the point of view of how aesthetic or different they may be. If it's very flat or very jagged, that poses more of like balancing problems. Or like the Japanese, how are you going to make the the Japanese armor work well against their counterparts, which would usually be superior. But when it comes to factions, really what it requires is a lot of hard work, like doing all the environments, all the new buildings, all the new props, and all the new units. The USA has thousands of human skins because they have so much diversity. And there's, custom uniforms for each division, like the 29th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd Armored. Could go on for a long time. But really, when you add a new nation, it's just a lot of work. And when there are technical limitations, it's about game features like paratroopers or naval warfare or things like this. And really, when we decide what nation to do next, we always try to make it match with a nation that we already have now. So the US were relatively easy to do because we have the Germans that they can fight against. And if we decided instead of the US to have added the Japanese, that would have been a lot more difficult because we don't have the nation they're fighting against either. We'd have to create two in one go, and that would have been too much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
So we're always looking at what we have now, and with our current ecosystem, who can we add to the game that makes sense next? So now, for example, we are at a crossroads because we have to decide if we want to use the Western Front that we have created, all these wonderful environments with high quality assets, to make the next module based on this, or if we want to, for example, create the desert or a different theater of war. And that would probably mean a longer development time, but it would also yield other advantages. But until now, we're sort of using what we have and building the next faction using the materials that we've built until now to make it more cohesive and growing it in a more organic way.
Yeah, I would imagine that Market Garden would be the easiest one to jump into next, just because like you can use the environment, and then you already have the Germans, so then you add the British, and then if you do that, then it's easier to go do Italy, because then you have the British and the Americans, and then and the Germans already. Then you just have the new environment, or you do Africa. So it is neat.
That's interesting that you said that the environments aren't really a bottleneck for development, because I guess that was my first thought, was like doing Italy would be hard from a graphic standpoint and an art standpoint, but I guess yeah, that's it. And same with Japan, or, the Pacific theater with foliage. But the game's pretty optimized, frankly.
Well, the thing here is that you essentially have to differentiate between what's technically difficult to do and what's technically long to do. So adding the environment takes a huge amount of time, but it's a work that you can start doing, and you know that the results are going to work. And you're going to spend many, many, many months doing a shit ton of buildings, and they're going to work, and they're going to be beautiful. However, then there's work that you just don't know how much spaghetti code and complexities you're going to run through, and if it's going to have side effects, and if it could worsen the gameplay. Those are really the bottlenecks. Even though they could potentially only take a quarter of the time to do, but then it could have a lot more implications. And that's also part of the reason why historically it's taken a lot of times to get games in this game engine published and released, because there's quite a long bug hunting and polishing stage where you're sort of fighting all the new features you've added, how they interact with the really old code, and generally just trying to make the best out of the many game features that if you've just pushed one button, 10 lights, 10 red lights could flag up somewhere else. Other game engines don't have to run into these issues, but we have chosen to work with this one, and it is quite, when you do achieve the right results, it is very satisfying. But it is kind of interesting, and I will agree with you there, that we're more concerned about little features that other people could not be worried about, as opposed to making huge environments. We're more comfortable doing the second than the first.
Oh yeah, it's just really cool. Working with this engine, that's your worry.
It's our challenge. Now we have saboteurs.
Please, get the grenade on. Oh my god. Are you kidding me?
Almost.
Oh. They died for nothing. That's brutal.
Yes, sir. Ready to roll, sir. Awaiting orders, sir. Good one. Armor ready.
So I guess another question I could ask is, I suppose you plan to like, how much is there even to add on the Eastern Front? Like, how do you go about adding? Are you just adding more obscure vehicles, or?
Oh, the Eastern Front is a huge battlefield. There's still countless things that we could add, from minor nations that partook in the conflict, like Hungary and Romania, down to, like, there's so many campaign single-player episodes that could be done, from special operations and stealth kind of missions down to so many large operations that we haven't really depicted yet.
Okay,
So,
cool.
The Eastern Front is just like, it's endless in a way. There was so much going on. We could not stop if we didn't want to. But obviously, what we want to do is a product that has a lot of diversity for it to be everybody's cup of tea. So right now, we would like to add more theaters of war, more nations. That's more important for us.
What's the okay, so this game, Liberation, comes out on the 29th, I believe, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I'm liking it. I mean, it's nice because it's just a solid expansion pack. You know what I mean? It just, everything fits. There's nothing crazy. Like I mean, crazy as in like nothing's upsetting the game in a really bad way. You know what I mean? It's like, it just feels really good. Interesting that the U.S. infantry units have the Garands, so they definitely have the leg up, like, individually. But I think Ty mentioned that earlier. They don't have the MG42, so their machine gun's quite poor compared to the German one. So it actually still feels really good. Because that was actually something that I kept thinking about a lot going into this, and it actually feels really good.
Ready to roll, sir.
There'll be obviously like the balancing of the USA is currently in full swing inside testing, so things will be potentially different on release. But mostly now it's down to balancing edge cases more than the nation as a whole.
I will say, you guys seem to have a lot of Shermans, man.
Said
Being my
every German
back
tank
gun.
commander in
Yeah.
1943.
The U.S. definitely feels much more mechanized than the Germans. Oh, actually, someone had a question that I wanted to ask for them. But have you guys ever thought about introducing horses?
Yes, we have. In fact, we made them work. At least I managed to. I'm just not remembering exactly why we decided to not go through with that. Probably it just wasn't on our most urgent radar at the time. But it is possible, yeah. In fact, it's been done before in the game engine on, I think it's called Battle of Empires, the World War I game. That's also based on an older version of the game engine.
Oh, World War I could actually be an interesting theater for this game.
Yeah, it feels like that would fit pretty well. I saw that mod. I was interested in checking it out one of these days, but I have yet to dabble too much in mods.
Well, the modding community's always been a large part of this game engine's sphere, and there is a lot of nice stuff out there.
Oh no, the Tigers are out.
Oh, the M3 looks awesome. I love the M3 despite how horrible it is.
It's a quirky one.
Yeah.
It's annoying because Ty plays like me. He like plays around his ATGs. There's always, it's interesting how people play. Some people play like super heavy armor. Some people, I like the toad guns a lot. Those are my favorite units.
Aye, sir.
Or like the half tracks with the ATGs. Those are neat.
Yes, sir.
Some people play like terrorists and just have like infantry and random bushes everywhere. Like just one guy. I hate those people.
Mm-hmm.
Ready to roll, sir.
How are we gonna win this game? Let's see here.
I have a feeling we're all going to need to probably leave at some point rather than finish it to the end.
Yeah.
It's been a very very balanced game thus far.
Well, it's kind of a cool map though, because the whole center sits in a valley, right? And then you have like the two hills on both sides.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh no.
It's okay. I'll just run over everyone.
Where's the Panda Shrek? Oh my god.
Goodbye, Mark.
Oh, I don't mind. I mean, I just ran over half your squad.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
Ready to roll, sir.
the Wolverine's still better than running half a squad over.
Who's the best player in the dev group?
Well, unfortunately, we're all terrible compared to, well, a certain someone.
We hired one of our competitive testers to help us shape the game, but he wishes to remain anonymous so as to, because competitive people can be picky if they knew that he worked with us. So he prefers to maintain some sort of anonymity. Anonymousness. But anyway, he is by far the best. And I don't think anybody that I know of has been able to beat him ever. So there's that.
Alright. I'm gonna make some moves here.
Ready, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh boy.
Oh yes.
Oh, that's
Oh yes.
awesome.
Yeah, I
Is he
can't
dropping an
wait to
egg?
just hear a P-47 doing that with 850 cals. It's gonna be something else.
I really like this M3 Lee. This is kind of a cool tank.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Please kill him.
Don't turn around.
Aye, sir.
But yeah, I like this map a lot too. It is beautiful. I love the autumn colors and stuff.
I'm ready.
Just aesthetically.
We spent a lot of time trying to go for a unique sort of display for each season or map, so that the maps were not just generic. And so for Liberation, with the different seasons on each map, they all have a different kind of flavor to them, and gives them a different visual appeal. And maybe with the correct modding community behind it, they can use the maps in an orientation where you can progress through the war as the maps, go from summer to autumn to winter.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's one thing I like when playing the dynamic campaign. I don't know, think would be cool if there were like proper seasons and you progress through the maps in a more linear fashion than them being randomized. I do understand why they're randomized, but just fighting from like, I don't know,
Ready, sir.
like Barbarossa to Moscow through those maps from summer to fall to winter.
Yeah, if you make the gaps between mission timelines short enough, you can see that progression in a very slow way.
Okay.
Kool-Aid. We're getting flanked over here.
Oh,
No, you're not getting flanked. It's okay.
it's okay.
Ready to go, sir.
Do these little pigs die when I shoot them?
Ready to go, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Sir.
Oh, like speaking of that Pavlov's house mission, like they
Oh.
start and the Germans are shooting a dog. It's like, oh my gosh. I know what I'm fighting for
Oh
now.
no, my guy just whiffed.
Yes, sir. Aye, sir. Aye, sir.
Oh no!
Ready to roll, sir.
It's over.
Oh, we traded.
It's over. There goes my epic flank. What about the engineers in this game? Because the engineers I feel like are really interesting. Because I think there was a mod that allowed them to build a lot more, like pillboxes and such. And with the Tali Vosta expansion pack, you let them build. There was that naval gun. I think it was a naval gun that the Finns have, which is like a really good
Yeah.
gun, which is awesome. And it's cool because it takes more time to build. But I was curious, like, are you guys ever thinking about maybe adding more for engineers to do more, like add more barbed wires or not deeper trenches, but like more intricate trench networks?
We definitely have plans for that, yes. Yeah.
And this one's a bit different. Have y'all considered adding like a replay system to go back and watch previous battles?
We definitely want to.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't know when and if we will encounter like a bottleneck there, but it's definitely in the plans. And our publishers agreed to get that done too at the time of the release. But we've simply been so busy with everything else that we haven't been able to address that yet.
Holy shit! Look at this map. What the?
This is awesome.
Who was the guy that went with the paintbrush and put all these craters in everywhere? This must have taken forever. Look at this map.
Well, I don't think he went for a paintbrush. I think he went for a rocket launcher or a large amount of them.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. No more Pioneer meta's over? I got a Grenadier squad now.
Well,
It's really cool.
now,
Oh, go ahead.
depending on the doctrine that you choose, you'll have different squads available. And that's kind of also why we had to do that feature where you preview the units you're going to get in the lobby. Because otherwise it would be impossible to remember all the squads that come with the different doctrine combinations. Another problem arose because of that, which was that the doctrines are just too... Like, there's so many squads, because each doctrine has different squads, that you lose track of which squad does what. So we added the sort of an infantry redesign where we gave the squads like presets of roles. So you can see there in the icon, there's some squads that are recon and have a recon eye, some squads that are more suited for defense that have a defensive shield, and different roles of squads have different perks. So the recon ones have better vision and run faster. The defensive ones regenerate health better, so they're good for a sort of click and forget kind of attitude. And that sort of also helps make the game a bit easier to understand for the new players, or for people that are playing the update for the first time and see that the squads have changed, like's the case now.
You guys are too polite to say it, so I'm going to say it, but I'm really glad you guys did it this way, where all the units are selected based on the doctrine you pick, because I feel like other games, which I'm not going to name, but where you can make your own unit cards to make your own division, like I feel like that got... No matter how many patches come out for the other games, like it gets turned into the meta so quickly, everyone figures out like what's the right mix of units, you know what I mean? And I feel like this makes it much more interesting.
Well, I think that all games have game design features that make it really hard to balance. On some games it could be the deck building capability. In our game, for example, it was the involvement of artillery, which, looking at the numbers, could be a tremendously accurate weapon. And the only reason why it's not so effective in real life is because you can't see what you're shooting at from above, like Eagle Eye. At least until recent times with drones and stuff. And in Ukraine you've seen how the role of artillery has become so much more useful with all this new tech that allow you to almost see it as an RTS game. In our game also, balancing was difficult because you had third person, so you had to make sure that third person wasn't completely OP, whereas controlling a soldier with the classic controls, so to speak. So every game has got challenges when it's time to balance, and I'm sure that other games out there that have deck building capabilities will make the right steps to find their little way of making it balanced.
I love this unit. This little armored car.
The heavy recon car.
The 231. They had this unit in World War II Online. It was the 232. That thing was such a fun little unit in that game.
Yeah, I love pretty much any vehicle with that 2-centimeter autocannon.
Yeah,
that thing's amazing.
They have it in Hell Let Loose with the Panther II Lukes.
Yeah,
it's like a Shilka against infantry. This is an interesting map. I could see myself. This is an interesting map because it's ever so slightly angled toward the center, which is like a crown. So what's the single player content come? So like, because we haven't talked about single player at all, because I don't really play single player. Oh, shoot. No, please move. Either shock.
oh boy.
Yeah, so what's the single player content like? Because I usually play multiplayer only, so I know Wolfpack plays a lot of single player, but there's going to be 2 campaigns, I guess, one for Germany, one for the US, or did you say it's dedicated per unit, like per division?
No, there's gonna be 2 campaigns. The USA one, and the USA one tells the story of the 2nd Rangers, which are the ones that landed at Pointe du Hoc, and the 3rd Armored Division, which was one of the main armored divisions that fought all the way from Normandy to the capitulation of Germany. So with those 2 units we can depict a lot of locations of the war. Normandy, the Battle of the Bulge, Operation Cobra, the fight around Hürtgen Forest, and the fights for the heart of Germany in 1945. So it was quite a good choice. And then for the Germans, we chose the 116th Panzer Division and the 3rd Fallschirmjäger, both of which fought for the whole of the Western Front, from Normandy to the end of the war, and equally have a lot of cool places and different locations where they fought.
Oh wait, I think I remember reading that you guys partnered with like a museum or something, right? In order to get access to the tanks to model them.
Yeah, Tyler, want to talk about that? Because
Yeah,
you
well,
were involved there.
I am curious, just on the upfront, like when you call up a museum, you're like, hey, we're making a game, we want to model the tanks. Are they like, do they understand, or do you have to explain to them like what gaming is? I'm just kind of curious.
So, where I live, there is a World War II armor, is the name of the, I guess you could say, museum, but they're not like a traditional museum, just to get a little bit of who they are. They're like a traveling museum. They have private property that they keep a lot of U.S. vehicles, equipment, weapons from World War II. And they take it to different like shows and things like that, and they try and educate the public on the equipment, the men that used it at that time period, you know, what their in life was for those guys and what it was like in World War II. So they just happened to be near where I live, so I tried to reach out to them, tell them who I was, what company I'm with, that we're making a game, and that we're going to be adding the U.S. faction to our game, and we'd love to visit, see if they were open to that. And they were very receptive and very gracious, and hosted us still and allowed us to come out and tour their facility, climb all over their tanks, take as many reference photos as we wanted. They've been great support after the fact too, when we've had questions about obscure facts and different things we couldn't find normally online. They've been a great resource and help for us there too. So it's been a great partnership with them, and very fruitful, and we're very grateful for it.
It's World War II armor, correct? Based in
Yes.
Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just wanted to make sure we say their name so they get the right credit. Yeah, like it's been an absolute pleasure working with these people. For our flight simulator combat pilot, we also have to inquire to museums because we need a lot closer detail and documentation of very, very specific things of aircraft and their subsystems and flight model and stuff. And generally dealing with museums is a lot harder than our experience with World War II armor. They really have been an incredible, helpful, and yeah, everything that Tyler said. So we agreed that we would sort of advertise them, and they would also advertise us, and they'd help us make sure that we get things done the right way. And they have been very, very helpful. There's been some remarks that they have given us that we have been unable to address. Like, for example, on some US vehicles, when you, on the tracks, when you do a static turn, it would be only one track that moves and one stays static. So it's not exactly a center turn, but it would be around one, like a turn around one lateral side of the vehicle. And they were keen to point things like that out, but unfortunately, our mobility model and pathfinding only accounts for the neutral turn, and we had to turn some of the feedback down. But overall, they have actually been really, really helpful, and we've changed things as much as possible to allocate their feedback, accommodate their feedback.
When it comes to like building, I guess creating the maps, like what how do you get resources for that? I guess just like aerial reconnaissance photos from the war. Like, how do you, I don't know, recreate how this area looked in 1944?
Yes, a lot of aerial photographs. We have a lot of contacts with people and agencies that have original or really high quality aerial photographs, and that allows us to get the overall appearance right. But then there's the issue of getting the height map correct, because from pictures and from aerial photographs you can't really gauge how tall this hill was or something like that. So for that we have to use cartography maps or satellite data, preferably satellite data, because we have a workflow whereby we can input the satellite height map straight into the engine, but sometimes it requires a bit of manual work to get it done. But yeah, you're not far off the mark. All of those things we use.
No, that's cool. It does seem like an interesting challenge.
Seems like a pain in the neck to make a map. That must take so long. Like, I mean, like, is that the single hardest thing to make? Like, out of all the individual assets, I guess? Because, I mean, a map is just not the map, right? It's like, it's all the different terrain and everything, so... Right?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of work and thought that goes into making maps.
Well, and like the maps in the campaign don't necessarily overlap with maps that you use for multiplayer, right?
No, there are some cases where after we've made the single player map, we go like, you know what, this could lend itself quite well to a multiplayer one, and we do a sort of conversion. And that, I think, happened with one map in the Liberation DLC. But usually we plan them separately.
So
we plan, yeah.
Do you even plan the conquest map separately?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we do. So the ones that come that have to be thought more carefully are the multiplayer ones, so that geographically we don't create an imbalance of terrain and stuff.
Right.
But we don't want to fake it. We don't want to make a mountain valley be turned flat for balance, so that it doesn't benefit one side. What has to be done is to research for a better area and map that one instead. So there's quite a lot of thought. Our map design team is the largest team inside our team. The map design and the 3D modeling team, since they have so much work to do.
Yeah, it must take them forever.
And I guess deciding what maps, like what areas you want to depict in the campaign and on the maps is something you all decide on in pre-production. And then if something happens to, I don't know, spill over and can be used elsewhere, you cross that road later on.
Yeah, and then we decide, how much stuff do you want to make part of a DLC, and how much stuff do you want to make part of like a free content update that gets released at the same time as the DLC. Because we don't want to create the experience that only favors the DLC people. We want to make the game bigger and better for everybody, whether you want to buy DLCs or not. And that's the whole point of content updates.
Well, that's the interesting thing that actually, and I mean this genuinely. I even told this to Flick the other day, or when Scorchers came out. Like, I was so surprised by the cost. I was like, this is actually like a really good deal. I was surprised by how much content came with it and how cheap the DLC was, or what not cheap, but like how well priced it was, and the content update you guys have, like, it's actually pretty insane how much stuff you put into them.
Well, and some of those campaign missions are massive. Like the Sevastopol one is like huge.
Yeah, they are pretty huge. Yeah, that's whole. Like, we wanted to finish telling off more of the Eastern Front, so we were compelled to do something with that package, either market it as a DLC or release it for free. And in the end, it was decided that we should release it as a small DLC, and that's what we did.
Which I think, considering everything that's there, is totally fair. Those are some of the coolest missions and set pieces. Which impresses me every time I play the single-player campaign. It's just how much work goes into scripting and such, too.
Yeah, scripting is quite a large chunk of the work because you want to make sure that missions are not monotonous. So for Liberation, we added quite a couple new game mechanics or mission stories that go differently. In the German campaign, you can, I'm not going to spoiler anything, but essentially you can choose to end the war or fight to the death in a certain moment. And you have to evacuate wounded and some other parts of the campaign, and you have to do things that are a little bit outside the box.
Oh,
So that there's always something new. It's not just doing the same routine but with a different nation or a different map. It has to be a genuinely new experience.
Baldur's Gate 3 storyline options.
Yeah, let's add some role-playing options.
That's neat. And then what's the cost of the DLC? Have you guys publicly said that yet?
I don't believe we're allowed to tell yet, but
okay.
it's going to be, it's going to continue the same line of price tags that we have been using until now. We look at how much content there is compared to the other packages, and we just price it accordingly. We don't want to, we want to use the same quantification for everything. So it's going to be an affordable price tag that will definitely, at least in our opinion, be worth the price by far.
Oh,
it's not going to try to take advantage of the demand for the US or anything like this. It's going to be fair and square.
And is the DLC policy that you have now going to kind of stay consistent? Like, I guess, like, you added a faction with Finland and then had Scorched Earth, which expanded on more Eastern Front stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, adding a faction like the US and then expanding it in a future DLC, or is that kind of a model you're going with, or is that just subject to change? The DLCs are just whatever you kind of want to do at that time.
No, I mean, there's definitely a lot left for us to tell for the US. We've talked about the airborne paratroopers, and there's the US also fought in North Africa and Italy and in the Pacific. So there's a whole lot that can be done. We just haven't decided the when and the where for it yet. We'll have to see how the game evolves. And right now we want to focus on creating broader steps to depict all the main nations that fought in World War II, wherever possible. And if we see a good opportunity to create a smaller DLC or depict a smaller nation that just fits in really well with what we're doing, then we will do that as well. But right now, our main efforts are in depicting the World War II as broadly as possible, trying to get all the main nations out there and all the most important events out there in an order that's acceptable for our little development team. That's all.
Do you guys have any questions for us? Just curious. As we want
how are you enjoying the? Actually, for Enigma in particular, how are you enjoying that drilling, the half-tack with a triple 15 mil?
It's interesting because if you get Germans and Map together, they do come up with some interesting designs.
that triple weapon's actually the 15 millimeter used in the 109 F2, the early version of the famous 20 mil that fired through the prop hub. They decided to make a triple because they could.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, I'm surprised they stopped at 3. I mean, maybe they're running out of them, but yeah. I really like this Panzer IV. I don't know why, but I don't know. I just like janky stuff. So this Panzer IV is like it's such a cool design. It's like they just took a tank and oh no, dude, the theme of all my games today have been one tank has knocked out everything. And I keep getting distracted thinking of questions, and I keep getting blown up.
Yeah, I'm gonna blame my poor gameplay on being distracted.
It's a valid valid excuse. So what's been most striking about the DLC in a good or a bad way? Now that you've got your hands on it, what's your first impressions?
Seeing these maps is awesome with these sorts of buildings and such. The sort of environments that y'all have created for this DLC, and seeing Western Europe opposed to Russian villages and such. It's pretty neat to see in this game.
Yeah, it's yeah, the maps are really cool. I've always thought the maps are really well designed, but it's interesting because I think the main takeaway for me is that the game just has good bones, like a good foundation. Because think about it, you added a whole new country, or GG, you added a whole new country, and the game doesn't feel, and I mean this is a compliment, it doesn't feel completely broken or anything feels out of whack. It just feels really natural. So I think it's just a testament to like the foundation of the game, and you guys are now, you got the hard part done, and now it's like adding new countries and biomes and skins and everything, and it's building up to be a really good franchise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I am like playing this. I can be excited about the future, and even near future, like playing this DLC more.
Yeah, because it'll be exciting to play against U.S. players and see what people come up with. Because I already have some ideas. That quad 50 looks interesting for the U.S.
Oh, it's OP. It's ridiculous. It's so much fun though.
Yeah. Any other questions as we close out?
I'm none. I have none.
Tyler, do you have any questions?
No, I don't think so. Just a thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thank you. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for the early read, the early look at this. Very excited to play November 29th, which is right around the corner. That's less than, it's about 10 days away.
Yeah.
So I look forward to it. I look forward to see what the Sweats come up with, if they go with the quad 50 or the schizo triple 15 millimeter for the Germans. But yeah, I've always really liked this game and the franchise. I've always really liked how it felt, and like I said, the game just has good bones. So it's exciting for the immediate future and for the long term of to me, this already feels like the definitive World War II RTS. So it'll get neat as you guys add more and more to it. And the US is like a really good addition because it already feels really good.
Completely agreed.
Well, as some final words, I'd like to thank you for the interest in our game and our games, Combat Pilot included. Thank you so much for your contributions to flight simming and RTS games. The hubs that you create are really, really important for these kinds of games where there's like a niche, and it has to be fostered by people that care and that build communities like you guys. And I'm really happy that our paths crossed, and I hope that we can continue having these sort of things many times in the future.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.